Hello again. We're in the Pure Worship book. What page are we on now?
We're on page 215 at the subheading Dividing the Land Evenly and Precisely.
Yeah, they're spending a lot of time on the land, and you have to ask now to what purpose? Because, well, if you just read it, you'll get an impression other than the one they want to plant in your head. Now, let's not forget that this entire section, section 5 in the book, the last section, is entitled, I Will Dwell Among My People.
Yeah.
And what you're being prepared for here is a forever, really, everlasting life on earth without God dwelling among you.
Yeah.
And of course, that means you have to deal with the concept of loyalty to the governing body, who apparently are going to be your guardians forever. No Jesus, no Jehovah. And that's the eternity that you have in your head when it comes to eternal life. So we want to dive into what they're saying now about the last couple of chapters here, specifically the last chapter, 48, right? And they're only picking for you to read in bold print here. They recommend you read 2 verses.
Yeah.
So we want to read those.
Verse and 28.
But we won't leave it there. We'll read their paragraphs of comment, of course, but we've got at least one more verse to illustrate the problem from the chapter they cite, which is
Why
48.
did they tell us to read only 2 verses? So you want me to read them?
Yeah, let's read 48. That is 1 and
28.
28 and 35 then.
Yeah. So 1 says, These are the names of the tribes, starting from the northern extremity. Dan's portion runs along the way of Hethlon to Leho-Hamath, to Hezra-Naim, along the boundary of Damascus northward beside Hamath, and it extends from the eastern to the western border.
That's pretty precise information, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Locations, that's probably why. Nobody could read those names. They only give you 2. The second one is, so they've given you the northern, now they give you the southern. The southern border, by the border of Gad, will run from Tamar to the waters of Merabath Kadesh, to the Wadi, and on to the Great Sea.
To the Wadi?
To the Wadi.
Okay.
Yeah. To the Great Sea. So but there's all these details. I mean, that's what the subheading says, evenly and precisely. There's
Precisely. That's the right word.
Lots of detail. But why, for the average witness, I think the reason they only give you 2 is you just get lost in all those details. It would be meaningless.
Meaningless.
Especially since now they're going to just make it all spiritual anyways. It has nothing to do with anything real.
So that you wanted to add verse 35, right? The very last verse of the chapter?
I think verse 35 gives you more information on why all this detail. The parameter will be 18,000 cubits, and the name of the city from that day on will be Jehovah is there.
That's the bottom line of the book of Ezekiel.
Mm-hmm.
That's the last line of the book of Ezekiel. So that's what God wants you to take away from this. But that's not what you take away.
Yeah.
What is this all about to you? And that's why we have to read these paragraphs.
Yeah.
And they keep insisting that it has to do with, well, we saw last time, 5 different expressions which have the word spiritual in. Remember?
Yeah.
And one of them is spiritual land. They continue
paradise, this. Spiritual nation.
So what are you supposed to take away from this if you're a Jehovah's Witness at the mercy of the governing body?
But think, what would Ezekiel have taken from it, since he's the one that's written this? And when did he see it happen?
Yeah. You're reading from the book, and I'm going to be looking at the screen because I've got to read a paragraph, right?
Yeah, you're going to start with the first paragraph.
All right, here we go. Dividing the land evenly and precisely. After having established the outer boundaries of the land, Jehovah described in detail how to allot the land itself. He directed that the 12 tribal inheritances be laid out evenly and precisely from north to south, starting with the tribe of Dan at the northern tip of the land and ending with the tribe of Gad at the southernmost boundary. Each of the 12 inheritances consisted of a horizontal strip of territory stretching from the land's outer boundary in the east to the Great Sea, or the Mediterranean Sea, in the west.
What assurances did this part of the vision likely convey to the exiles? The detailed description that Ezekiel gave of the land allotment must have impressed on the exiles that the dividing of the land would be well-organized project.
That's your takeaway. It's well organized.
Really? Yeah.
It's got nothing to do with the land, though.
Yeah. Moreover, the precise division of the land among all 12 tribes underlined that every one of the returned exiles would receive a secure inheritance in the restored land. No one would return only to end up landless or homeless. So they make some literalness out of it. But it's just another organizational.
It's a plug for the organization, the idea of organization.
Yeah.
But before I know I'm just itching to get into this paragraph, but I'll resist the inclination and read the last paragraph of this section. What strengthening lessons can we draw from this vision today? The restored promised land had a place not only for the priests, the Levites, and the chieftains, but also for all other members of the 12 tribes. But they all live together, and that's where your application of this doesn't work. God's not there. The priests and Levites aren't there. They're in heaven, and you're on the earth.
Yeah.
This is not the picture in Ezekiel. These 9 chapters, this is not the picture. You're all together. Similarly, today, the spiritual paradise has a place not only for the anointed remnant and for those among the great crowd who take the lead, but also for all other members of the great crowd. No matter how modest our role in the organization may be, we have a secure place and a valuable assignment in the spiritual land. What a heartwarming assurance.
Yeah. So by making it about right now and this spiritual land, you don't have to deal with anything literal. I mean, witnesses believe in a paradise, a literal paradise coming
in their lifetime.
Yeah.
And because that is perpetually postponed,
Yeah.
I would say it is perpetually postponed paradise.
You have to give them something now. And so I think for the witnesses that are witnesses, that's what you're presented with, a spiritual paradise. It's not what you present to the people at the door. You want them to think about a literal paradise.
In their lifetime.
Yeah. But for the ones that are already in there, you have to tell them that they are in a spiritual paradise. And if you don't feel like you're in a spiritual paradise, you don't blame them. You blame yourself. Must be me.
Yeah. If I don't feel like I'm happy and I don't feel like I'm well fed, and those two facts are seemingly related, right?
Yeah.
If you're not well fed, you will feel miserable.
But you'll think it's your fault.
And you'll think it's your fault. And then you realize, well, the parallel here just doesn't hold, because in the case of Israel, they were looking forward to a literal paradise when they got back. But when they did get back, and it was only 50,000 of them, but they went back, what they got was not what was written by Ezekiel, written by Isaiah, written by Amos and Micah. No, this Shekinah wasn't there. God was not dwelling among them, and they were acutely conscious of that from then on.
But they were still hoping for it. I mean, the last verse in Ezekiel tells you that.
But it was in the future.
Yeah.
So
in the future, Jehovah will be there.
So Ezekiel and the other prophets are promising them that one day, despite appearances, the literal paradise will be here. And what you've got, if you're a witness hanging on now for 5 or 6 generations, is this poor substitute for what you were promised.
Yeah.
And you know it's not real, even if you're a loyal witness. Like you said, your way of rationalizing the fact that you don't feel like you're in a spiritual paradise is to say, well, what is better? Who out there has anything better than we do?
Yeah.
Well, you'd be surprised. No, you'd be astonished. They've got a lot better food than you do. And they are a lot happier generally in the churches we've been in. I would have to say that the anxiety level is much lower than it is among the witnesses.
Yeah. Yeah.
They have a peace that you've not contemplated. Well, it's not all rosy in the church. We'll be the first to confess that. But they have a peace and a lack of anxiety that you can't relate to with a witness.
The church doesn't insist upon you just ignoring the problems and saying we're in a paradise.
Yeah.
They just deal with the problems as they come.
So as to their interpretation of these last chapters of Ezekiel, specifically this one where the land is allotted and divided very precisely, you're really lost in the land here. That's why you're right that you can't read these chapters and feel comfortable as a witness, because
No.
what is all this detail for?
Yeah.
And that then I remember when I'm talking about it this way that we were with people even when we were pioneers. We knew people in our congregation, and actually Charlie, who was the only anointed one in our congregation, who I used to be so impressed by when we would visit. No, when he would come to the Kingdom Hall by himself, because we were aware his wife was an invalid in a wheelchair. And when we got to know them better and we visited them, and we only saw her maybe once or twice a year, probably at the memorial in her wheelchair. And when we got to know them in their home, we realized why they were in this sad situation. And it was because they had taken Rutherford's words seriously. His last book, Children, advising all the young people that were in the Watchtower in 1940-41 to postpone having children until Armageddon was over, and it was to be any month now.
Yeah.
They had taken it all very seriously, and now they were, well, this is now 1975 or so. They're in their early 70s maybe, and they're childless, and there was a sadness about it all. Well,
Yeah.
I didn't know what to
even,
say.
Even they portrayed a sadness about it, right? That they had no children.
This is 2 generations ago, and that was when there was only 1 million or 1.5 million Jehovah's Witnesses, and all of those have died off, and now they've been replaced by 8 or 10 million other Jehovah's Witnesses,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they have the same thing to deal with, which is all the promises are indefinitely postponed, perpetually postponed.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to the exiles going back, they didn't think that this was it, and when the temple was rebuilt, that didn't solve that problem that God wasn't there, His presence wasn't there, the Shekinah wasn't there. So even today, Jews will say, next year in Jerusalem. Believing Jews will say that. Why are they saying that? You've already cut that all off as not real.
It never happened. Never
so
happened.
Ezekiel laying out these detailed plans is all for naught. But they believe it. Those Jews will believe it and believe that one day this will be the city called Jehovah is here.
And He will be here.
Yeah.
Although they tend to turn that into a metaphor too, interestingly enough. Whereas it is true that among Jews today, the liberal Jews, that is the non-Orthodox Jews across the planet, have tended to take the personal Messiah that they used to believe in metaphorically, just like you do as a witness. He's never going to be really with us. What it means is that one day the world will be transformed and we will be the Messianic nation that will bring this, something like that.
Yeah.
But the Watchtower doesn't have that. They've got something far more insidious, namely that, well, because Jehovah and Jesus will never be here, you have to adjust to the fact that you will always have a mediator, and that's us.
Yeah.
And so they've been feeding on ashes for a very long time. As we've plainly said, the food they give the audience, the prospective Jehovah's Witness, is a literal paradise in their own lifetime, and your poor substitute for that, the pill you have to take, is living in this so-called spiritual paradise indefinitely, because at the mercy of this group of people that are feeding you ashes, not biblical food.
Yeah.
What will be our link?
We are linking to a Franz video. JWs urged to look normal, but postpone children till paradise. So that's one to do with the book Children, which Ray Franz took seriously.
Yeah, Ray Franz took it very seriously.
With his wife.
He didn't get married at all until it became permissible to get married when he's at...
And they didn't have children.
Yeah.
Which they regretted later. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's so true for so many dedicated witnesses.
Yeah, very sad.
Yeah, so check this one out, because it's pathetic that there's been no public apology for what they've done to the lives of these people who were robbed of children, sometimes of even a mate, but robbed of children and grandchildren by
Because,
your false promises.
and people will say, well, you could always choose to do it if you wanted to. But you were encouraged not to do it. That's the point. And a lot of people who took it seriously, believed that paradise was right around the corner, didn't have children. We didn't have children while we were witnesses, thinking, we'll wait till paradise.
But the good news is we had a child, so we're not bitter about it because we had it in God's timing. But they have never had children, and we've met many of them since we left.
Yeah.
And it's time for those who are still defending the organization to realize you'll never get an apology.
Yeah.
Because that would be to admit that God has not been guiding this group of men for these 120, 140 years.
You should acknowledge that people who took it seriously sacrificed. But the current group of witnesses who maybe aren't pressured as much to do this, don't look at the ones that are in their congregation that have no children and think, I wonder why. They don't know.
The serious ones,
pressure.
many of the serious ones that we knew did not have children, and some accidentally had children along the way, including the pioneers who were the most zealous in the congregation, including your sister. Some of them accidentally had children, but I bet they're glad they did now. I bet they're glad those accidents happened because 50 years has gone by since they were young and ambitious.
Yeah.
And so we have to feel really sad for all those who are now being consoled that, well, you can have a fruitful old age. The magazines they've put out lately on that subject have been almost
enjoy your old
inspiring
age.
mirth, but no, it can't be. We can't laugh at it because they can't laugh at it, can they?
No, it's very sad.
Hanging on for dear life at the end of their 70 or 80 years.
Yeah.
See you next time.